Hello everyone, in this new tutorial we will sculpt this cat character design. We will go through some different sculpting tools available in Blender. If you are completely new to sculpting, you can check my previous sculpting tutorial as well. So let's start with this one. We will first prepare a blockout of the design. Select the cube and add a 3-level subdivision with Ctrl 3 and apply the modifier as well. Right-click and select Smooth Shade. This will be the head part of the character. Move it up. Press Shift D to duplicate this object and right-click as you move to snap back the object to its position. Now move it down and scale up the size along Z-axis. This part will become the body of the character. Create a new duplicate copy of this object and make it smaller. We are now going to add the shapes for the legs and arms. Position it roughly near the bottom side. Add a mirror modifier and select the body as mirror object reference so we can have the other side parts visible. Create another duplicate and change the size for it. This will become the foot part. Now for the arms, duplicate once again and change the scale of the object and position them on the front side. Add one more part for the paws. The better your blockout is, the more it will be helpful in the sculpting process. Let's add the ears as well. We are simply reusing the same objects for all the parts. Since a mirror modifier is already added to the original object, we don't have to add it again. Before proceeding to sculpting, select everything and press Ctrl A for the transform menu. Select transform scale. This property resets any changes in the scale for the objects and will make the sculpting brushes to work correctly. If you want to show the wireframe of the model during sculpting, then in the overlay menu, you can use the geometry wireframe property. Assign a shortcut or add it to your quick favorites. I am using F4 key to turn on and off the wireframe. Now select all the blockout parts in the lower section and press Ctrl J to join them into one part. Next, apply the mirror modifier. Select this lower part and join it to the main body. Press Ctrl J for it. We will do the same for the head part and join the ears to it. Make sure to apply the mirror modifier before joining the ears to the head. At this stage, if you want, you can create a backup copy of this blockout in a separate collection so we can reuse this again if needed for some other design. Press Ctrl Tab and switch to Sculpt mode. Here the sculpting brushes are visible on the left side bar. In case you see some different color applied on the objects, it means that Blender has assigned facets to these objects. Facets allow a specific object to be sculpted without affecting the other surrounding objects. For instance, if I turn on the wireframe and using the grab brush try to move points, you can see currently it affects all the area under the brush. If we turn on the facet setting under the brush menu and now try to move the points, the brush will only affect that colored part under it. You can use this feature if you want to further refine the shapes. Next, make sure to turn on X symmetry option from the top menu so our sculpting changes are reflected on both sides. I'm going to make some small adjustments. To switch over to any other part, press Alt-Q. It will highlight and become active. Turn on symmetry here as well. Using the grab brush with a small strength and refine the shape of the ears and head. You can change the shape of the brush size with F key. Now I am going to switch to the body section and make some sculpting changes. The next step is to make all the objects in the blockout to seamlessly join with each other. This process is called remeshing. In the sculpting mode, go to the top right menu called Remesh. Click it and here you can see some properties. Turn on Fix. We can either click the Remesh button here or use a grid method which we are going to use for now. In the viewport, press Shift R and you should see a grid with a voxel size number in it. Move the mouse to make the size dense or thin. If the size is bigger, remesh result will be less detailed. Let's try a bigger value. Nothing will happen yet. Press Ctrl R to perform the remesh operation. You should now see the model converted into a low poly object. But this is not the result we need. I will undo the remesh operation, press Shift R again, and this time I will use a more dense grid size. Ctrl R to apply the remesh operation. You can see the result is more better this time. All parts are seamlessly blending with each other. Now with the grab brush and using a low strength value, I will start making more adjustments in the shape of the body. To smooth any part of the object during sculpting, press Shift and brush over the surface. Next, switch over to the head part. We will use a slightly dense grid size here as well, so our base of the head is retained. First, set the size of the remesh grid. Ctrl R to perform the remeshing operation. Now with the move brush, make adjustments to the ears and head shape. Move some points in the center of the head to define the nose area. To view our sculpting more better in the editor, we can also change the viewport matte cap material. Use any one which you like. We will sculpt in some part for the eyes. Select the inflate brush with a high strength value. Hold Ctrl and start brushing over the surface. Using the move brush, I will slightly refine the shape of the eye area. Shift click alongside to smoothen any surface bumps. To add eyes, I am simply going to add a cube with 4 subdivisions and smooth shade him. Change the scale and position of this object and place it inside the sculpted eye area. Add a mirror object to get the other side eye. Use the head as mirror object reference. Duplicate this eye object and change the size to make it smaller. Rotate and position this object just over the eye base. I will continue with the adjustments on the head and the body. Select the head and the eyes and move them up. And then in the sculpt mode, move the top part of the body slightly up to make it longer. Now let's add a tail. Shift A, go to curves and add a Bezier curve object. Move it to the side, make it a bit bigger and rotate it. In the curve properties, change the depth amount so we have some thickness. Turn on fill caps as well to close the open curve ends. In the curve edit menu, select one end vertex, press E to extrude and move it to the back side. Move the vertex handles to position the curve. If we look at the wireframe of the tail objects, it looks pretty good already. We will just fix the end faces to make them look round and clean. Right click and convert this curve to mesh. In the face selection mode, select all the end faces. Press X and delete them. Now select all the boundary edges and in the face menu, use grid fill to add a clean quad faces. I will select one face and move it outside. Ctrl 2 to add a 2-level subdivision. Now the tail end looks clean and smooth. We will not yet join the tail with the body, so we can make changes easily if needed later. To further refine our sculpt topology, select the body object. We can see the remesh operation does produces good results, but in some areas we have a pattern type of faces which may affect our sculpting results. Go to Object Data Properties. Here in the Remesh panel, we have two options, Voxel and Quad. Voxel is same as Remesh that we used earlier in sculpting mode. We will click QuadriFlow Remesh this time. In the properties, turn on mesh symmetry and smooth normals, and let's start with something like 300 faces to generate. Click OK. It will take a few seconds and we will have a new quad base clean topology for our model. Please keep in mind this does not work always for every type of model. Sometimes your result may not come good as expected. So try different face values or remesh before using it. If you encounter any non-manifold error when using quad remeshing, then enable 3D Print Toolbox add-on and use the Make Manifold button in it to remove any problems. Then use this quad remesh. Now back to our model. We can see we have some open faces at some places. We will fix them. The open faces issue only happens if we use the symmetry option in the quad remesh operation. First, go in the edit edge mode, select all the edges in one area. Turn on Auto Merge from the top menu. With the edges selected, first press S, then X and 0. This will move all the vertices of the open edges to the mid and auto merge them. I will repeat the same steps for all the open spaces. We can now clean up the head part as well. I will again use the QuadriFlow Remesh. It will create a new clean topology. We can see there are some places where edges are not closed. We can fix them by selecting the open edges and using SX0 shortcut. Everything looks much more optimized now for sculpting. I am going to rename the different parts so it is easier to select them later. We are now going to sculpt more details to our model. Select the body, add a Multires modifier, add 2 levels of subdivision. Switch to Sculpt mode and turn off Fast Navigate so our object does not switches to low resolution detail when moving the view. Turn on the Symmetry option as well. Now with the Move brush and using a low strength, start shaping the paws and the leg area. You can also switch to low subdivision levels with page up or page down to make bigger changes. This feature is only available when using a Multires modifier. For more sculpting details, we will use a Draw Sharp brush. If you like more control during sculpting, you can turn on Stabilize Stroke option here. Now draw over the leg part. To smooth any detail, press Shift and brush over the surface. With the Move brush, I am making small adjustments in the arms and switching between different levels as well to refine the shape. I am slightly speeding up this part of the video and it is mostly moving the shapes. Switch over to the head part and add a Multires modifier with 2 level subdivision. In the Sculpt mode, I will use the pinch and the Move brush to shape the areas around the eyes. Let's add some detail to the ear. Use the Fill Mask option. Click the mask brush. While holding Ctrl, I will brush over the area to remove the mask. Now with the Inflate brush, hold Ctrl and brush over the unmasked area to sculpt down the surface slightly. Press Alt M to clear the mask. Shift Smooth as needed. With the Draw Sharp brush, sculpt to add a mouth line. Use the pinch brush to make it thin and smooth it a little. In the body, let's add some more details. If at any point you notice the brush detail is looking too low, then you can increase the subdivision level to 3 in the Multires modifier. Usually 3 to 4 levels should be enough in most cases. Next steps are using the same techniques with the move, draw sharp and smoothing the sculpting. For any areas where you need to control the sculpting without affecting the other parts, or the gap between the parts is small, turn on Topology setting. The brush will only affect that part where the brush is hovering. Now I am again speeding up this part of the video as most things are very similar as before. We are just making some adjustments and adding simple details. Let's add some detail to the neck. I'm going to add a torus object. Use the transform to scale and position it. Adding a cube with 3 level subdivision for the other parts. Apply the modifier. And use the sculpting brush to define the shape. Switch over to material preview. Let's assign some basic materials so we can see how our model looks in color. For the head, body and tail, I have assigned a black colored material with high roughness. For the eyes, add 2 materials, one white and other black. Keep the roughness value low so reflections are visible. If you want, you can also change the default background HDR lighting in the preview window. In the render properties, turn on ambient occlusion so we can have some shadow depth in areas where different parts are closer. Use a value something like 0.5. Let's add a small nose. You can reuse the same round object from the bow or add a new one. Position it on the tip of the nose area and in the sculpt mode, use the move brush to build its shape. For the side whiskers, I have again used a Bezier curve just like the tail, but with a smaller size and thickness. In the edit mode, select all vertices, duplicate the curve, add a mirror modifier for the other side. The last detail will be adding some hair strands. You can either use a snake hook brush or just use the move brush. Keep the brush size small, this time keep the strength high and pull up some areas on the head. You can turn off the symmetry so both sides look a bit different. If you need to make the sculpting result look more smoother, then you can increase the subdivision level in the Multires modifier. In order to paint this model, we can use Vertex Painting. I do have a more detailed tutorial for Vertex Painting as well. You can check it out if needed. Let's select the head and duplicate it. Since we are going to apply the Multires modifier, it is better to have a backup copy of the head in case we want to reuse it. Apply the modifier. In the data properties, open color attribute panel, click the plus button, leave the name as color. This will create a vertex color property for this object. In the shader editor, add a new node called color attribute. Connect the color property to the BSDF color property. Select the color name from the drop-down menu in the attribute node. This should set up the material for Vertex Painting. Back in the viewport, switch to Vertex Paint mode. Set a color you like to use and start painting. From here you can continue making any changes you like. There is no one way to do sculpting as there are many different tools and workflows, and you can use whichever method works for you. I hope you find this tutorial useful in some way. If you like to see more future content, then please consider subscribing, giving this video a like and turn on notification bell as well. Thank you very much and I will see you in the next video.